The charity gala at the Lincoln Center buzzes with Manhattan's elite when Kang Min-jun spots her across the gilded ballroom. A black woman in a navy dress sits alone at a corner table, absorbed in a leather-bound notebook, completely unaware that every conversation around her has shifted to whispered speculation. The publishing world recognizes her instantly. Janelle Peterson, the best-selling author whose latest novel has dominated the Times list for 12 consecutive weeks. Min-jun doesn't hesitate. He crosses the marble floor in 3 deliberate strides and settles into the empty chair beside her without invitation. "Excuse me," she says, not looking up from her writing. "This table is exactly where I need to be." His English carries just enough accent to intrigue her. "You're revising chapter 12. Now she looks at him. Almond-shaped eyes, sharper than her publicist photos suggest, and a guarded expression that tells him she's heard every pickup line money can buy. "How could you possibly know that?" He tilts his head toward her open notebook, where her elegant handwriting fills the margins of a printed page. The protagonist is standing at the crossroads, isn't she? About to choose between the safe path and the one that terrifies her. Min-jun's dark eyes hold hers steadily. "You write about second chances like you truly believe in them." Her breath catches. No one has read over her shoulder in years. Publishers, agents, and interview journalists see only the finished product. But this stranger has glimpsed her raw work, the messy heart of creation before polish and perfection. "Maybe you're the one who needs a second chance," she says quietly. The words hit him like recognition, not just of possibility, but of destiny. In this moment, surrounded by the artificial glitter of New York wealth, Min-jun feels something he's never experienced. The absolute certainty that he has found his home. Not a place, but a person. The conversation around them fades. The obligations of his corporate empire become distant concerns. And all that exists is this woman whose smile seems to unlock chambers in his heart he didn't know were sealed. "Min-jun," he says, extending his hand. "Kang Min-jun." She takes it, and the simple touch sends electricity through both of them. "Janelle Peterson. I know exactly who you are." His fingers don't release hers. "The question is whether you know who you're about to become." Before she can respond, camera flashes explode around them like lightning strikes. A reporter's voice cuts through the sudden chaos. "Mr. Kang, is this your mysterious American girlfriend? Are the Seoul business journals reporting an international romance?" Janelle pulls her hand free, alarm flashing across her features. But Min-jun doesn't flinch, doesn't release her gaze, doesn't let the invasion fracture this moment that has already rewritten the trajectory of both their lives. "Some meetings," he says softly, "meant only for her, are worth any complication." The crowd presses closer, questions flying like arrows. Janelle's publicist materializes with practiced efficiency, already calculating damage control. But Min-jun remains seated, perfectly calm in the eye of this sudden storm, watching the woman whose presence has just made his carefully ordered world beautifully, impossibly complex. The cameras keep rolling, but neither of them moves. Two people who have just discovered that sometimes destiny announces itself in the most public, most inconvenient, most perfect way possible. When love crosses continents and challenges traditions, every choice becomes a risk worth taking. If this story of courage and connection moved you, subscribe to join the journey. Because some love stories deserve to be shared across all borders. The headlines hit before Janelle's morning coffee finishes brewing. Her phone buzzes incessantly on the marble counter of her Tribeca apartment, notifications flooding in faster than she can read them. "Mystery woman captivates Korean business heir," screams page 6, International romance blooms at charity gala, declares the Daily News. Sarah bursts through the front door without knocking, her red curls wild and her coral blazer slightly askew. "Have you seen the internet this morning?" she demands, waving her tablet like evidence in a courtroom. "Because the internet has definitely seen you." "I was just talking to him," Janelle protests, though the memory of Min Jun's intense gaze makes her stomach flutter. It was a conversation. People have conversations at charity events. People don't usually have conversations that break the entertainment news cycle, Sarah retorts, scrolling through article after article. "Do you know who he is? Kang Min-jun isn't just wealthy. He's heir to Kang Industries, one of South Korea's largest conglomerates. His mother practically owns half of Gangnam, and according to Forbes, he's worth approximately $800 million. The number hits Janelle like cold water. 800 million. She'd known he was affluent. His tailored suit and Swiss watch had telegraphed expense, but she hadn't grasped the magnitude. Her own success, impressive by literary standards, suddenly feels microscopic in comparison. "There's more," Sarah continues grimly. "The Korean business press is calling it the romance of the century. Apparently, he's never been photographed with a woman before. Ever. His mother gives interviews about suitable marriages and heir expectations, but he's remained mysteriously single until last night." Janelle sinks into her reading chair, the same worn leather seat where she'd written her first novel 7 years ago. Everything feels surreal. The photos of her and Min Jun gazing at each other, the speculation about their whirlwind courtship, the breathless commentary about crossing cultural boundaries. "We talked for 20 minutes, she says weakly. 20 minutes that apparently changed both your lives, Sarah observes, but her voice is gentler now. "Janelle, I've seen you interact with celebrities, politicians, even that disastrous setup with the ambassador's son. You don't look at any of them the way you looked at him in these photos. It's true, though admitting it feels dangerous. Something had shifted the moment Min Jun sat beside her, something deeper than attraction or curiosity. When he'd spoken about second chances, it felt like he was reading her soul through her own words." Her phone rings. Unknown international number. "Don't answer," Sarah warns, but Janelle is already sliding to accept the call. "Miss Peterson?" The voice is polite, professional, distinctly Korean. "This is Park Tae-hyun, legal counsel for Kang Industries. Mr. Kang Min-jun has asked me to contact you regarding the media attention from last night's event." "I see." Janelle keeps her voice neutral, though her heart pounds. "And what would Mr. Kang like me to know?" "He wants to apologize for any inconvenience the coverage may cause you. He also wondered if you might be free for lunch today. Somewhere private, where you can speak without interruption." Sarah is making frantic negative gestures, but Janelle finds herself saying, "Where and when?" "There's a small Korean restaurant in Koreatown, Omoni's Kitchen, 1 o'clock. Mr. Kang will be in the private dining room." After she hangs up, Sarah stares at her in dismay. "You're really going to meet him again?" "I need to know if what I felt was real," Janelle admits. 20 minutes shouldn't be enough to turn someone's world upside down, but... She gestures helplessly at the photos still blazing across Sarah's tablet. "Look at us. Look at how we're looking at each other." In the images, she and Min Jun appear completely absorbed in each other, oblivious to the camera flashes and curious stares. There's something in his expression, vulnerability beneath the confidence, longing beneath the composure, that makes her chest tight with recognition. "What if this is bigger than both of us?" Janelle asks quietly. Sarah studies her friend's face, noting the flush of possibility and the fear of disappointment warring in her dark eyes. "Then you'd better wear something that photographs well," she says finally, because something tells me this lunch is going to make headlines too. But as Janelle selects her outfit, she doesn't know that Eleanor Kang is already on a flight from Seoul to New York, carrying documents that could destroy any romance before it truly begins. The private dining room at Omoni's kitchen feels like a sanctuary tucked away from the chaos of the outside world. Traditional Korean artwork lines the walls, and the air carries the comforting aromas of kimchi and bulgogi. Minjun arrives first, choosing a seat that faces the door, a habit developed from years of board meetings where knowing who enters the room can mean the difference between success and corporate warfare. When Janelle appears in the doorway, wearing a burgundy sweater that brings out the warmth in her dark skin, time seems to slow. She moves with quiet confidence, but he notices the way her fingers worry the strap of her handbag, a small tell that betrays her nervousness. "Thank you for coming," he says, rising to greet her. The formal politeness feels inadequate for the connection crackling between them, but neither knows how to navigate this territory. "Thank you for apologizing," she replies, settling into the chair across from him. "Though, I'm not sure what you're apologizing for exactly. For the circus, for the invasion of your privacy, for putting you in an uncomfortable position." His hands rest flat on the table, and she notices they're steady despite the intensity in his dark eyes. "I didn't anticipate the media reaction." "Didn't you?" She tilts her head, studying him. A billionaire heir talks to an American author at a public event, and you didn't expect photographers to notice. A rueful smile touches his lips. "Perhaps I was distracted." The admission hangs between them, honest and dangerous. The server arrives with traditional banchan, small plates of pickled vegetables, seasoned spinach, and other Korean side dishes, providing a momentary buffer against the tension. "Your friend seemed concerned about this meeting," Minjun observes as they sample the food. "Sarah is protective. She's seen me make poor decisions about men before." Janelle's voice is matter-of-fact, but he senses deeper wounds. She's also done her research. "Apparently, you're quite the mystery in international business circles. Mystery implies deliberate concealment. I prefer private. Is there a difference?" He considers this, appreciating the directness of her question. Most people in his world speak in elaborate codes, dancing around meaning rather than confronting it. Privacy is choosing what to share. Mystery is letting others fill in the blanks with their assumptions. And what assumptions have people made about you? That I'm cold. Calculating. That I view relationships as business transactions. His fingers trace the rim of his water glass. Perhaps they're not entirely wrong. But perhaps they're not entirely right either, Janelle suggests gently. Something in her tone, understanding rather than judgment, makes him look up sharply. "What makes you say that? Last night, when you sat beside me, you didn't introduce yourself first. You didn't mention your company or your connections. You talked about my writing, about second chances, about taking the difficult path." She pauses, choosing her words carefully. That's not how calculated people behave. The observation strikes him deeply. In a lifetime of strategic interactions, she's identified something essentially true about that moment: his abandonment of all social protocol in favor of genuine connection. "I felt..." He stops, unsure how to articulate the experience without sounding foolish. "Like you'd been looking for that conversation your entire life without knowing it," she finishes quietly. Their eyes meet across the small table, and the recognition is mutual, profound, and terrifying. Neither has ever experienced this level of immediate understanding with another person. "My mother will want to meet you," Minjun says eventually. Will she approve? Approval isn't her primary concern. Control is. The honesty in his voice tells Janelle everything she needs to know about Eleanor Kang. And you? Do you always do what your mother expects? Until recently, yes. What changed recently? He doesn't answer directly. Instead, he reaches into his jacket and pulls out a slim volume. Her latest novel. The pages already marked with careful marginalia. I bought this after our conversation last night. I've been reading since dawn. Janelle's breath catches. The book in his hands is deeply personal, exploring themes of identity, belonging, and the courage required to love completely despite past wounds. Seeing her private thoughts reflected in his careful notes feels more intimate than any physical touch. Your protagonist chooses love over safety, he says. Even when it means disappointing her family, even when it means risking everything she's built. A fiction often explores choices we're too frightened to make in reality. She replies carefully. What if someone offered you the chance to stop being frightened? The question hangs between them like a bridge, one that could lead to extraordinary happiness or devastating heartbreak. Janelle knows that crossing it will change everything, that accepting his implicit invitation will thrust her into a world of international scrutiny, family expectations, and cultural complexities she can barely imagine. But when she looks into Minjun's eyes, she sees something that makes the risk worthwhile. A man who has spent his entire life meeting other people's expectations, finally brave enough to reach for what his heart actually wants. I might be willing to find out, she says softly. His smile transforms his entire face, making him appear younger, more hopeful, luminously happy. Then we should probably discuss logistics. Logistics? My mother lands at JFK in 3 hours. Janelle's coffee cup freezes halfway to her lips as she realizes this quiet lunch may have been the last peaceful moment they'll share for a very long time. Eleanor Kang emerges from first class at JFK Airport, like a force of nature wrapped in Chanel. At 58, she carries herself with the regal bearing of someone accustomed to commanding attention and receiving immediate deference. Her black hair is swept into an immaculate chignon, and her pearls, a graduation gift from her own mother-in-law 40 years ago, catch the terminal's fluorescent lights like armor. Taehyun waits beside the black sedan, his expression carefully neutral, despite the anxiety churning in his stomach. As Minjun's best friend and legal advisor, he's witnessed Eleanor's strategic mind in action countless times, but never when her son's personal happiness was the target. Mrs. Kang, he greets her with a respectful bow. I trust the flight was comfortable? Adequate. Her tone is crisp, businesslike. Bring me up to date on the situation. As the sedan navigates Manhattan traffic, Taehyun provides a careful summary. The charity gala encounter, the media explosion, the lunch meeting currently taking place in Koreatown. Eleanor listens in silence, her manicured fingers drumming against her Hermes handbag. Show me the photographs again, she commands. Taehyun reluctantly hands over his tablet, displaying the images that have set the international gossip world ablaze. Eleanor studies each photo with the intensity of a chess master, analyzing opponent moves, noting the way her son gazes at Janelle Peterson, the obvious chemistry between them, the complete abandonment of his usual calculated public persona. This is worse than I anticipated, she murmurs. Ma'am? He's falling in love with her. Look at his face. I haven't seen him look that happy since. She trails off, unwilling to voice the comparison. Since Jin-ho died. Since her younger son's death shattered Minjun's faith in joy, leaving him dutiful but emotionally distant for 7 long years. The comparison should please her. Isn't a mother's deepest wish for her child's happiness? But Eleanor Kang has learned that happiness is a luxury the heir to Kang Industries cannot afford. Love makes men vulnerable, distracted, prone to poor judgment. And Minjun is too important to their family legacy to be allowed such dangerous indulgences. What do we know about her? Eleanor asks. Taehyun opens a thick folder prepared by their private investigators. Janelle Peterson, age 32. Born in Oakland, California, to Angela Peterson, a high school English teacher. Father unknown, officially. Raised primarily by her grandmother after her mother died in a car accident when Janelle was 16. Go on. Full academic scholarship to Stanford, graduated summa cum laude with degrees in English literature and creative writing. Worked various jobs while writing her first novel. Coffee shops, bookstores, freelance editing. Her debut novel was rejected by 43 publishers before finding success. Eleanor nods approvingly. Persistence and intelligence are admirable qualities, but the relief in her expression fades as Taehyun continues. She's been extraordinarily successful. 3 best-selling novels, numerous literary awards, estimated net worth around $5 million. But there are complications, such as she's very private about her personal life, but our investigators found records of a previous engagement to David Morrison, a corporate lawyer in San Francisco. The engagement ended abruptly 2 years ago, under circumstances that caused significant gossip in literary circles. What kind of circumstances? Rumors of infidelity on his part. Speculation about her trust issues. Multiple sources suggest she's been deliberately avoiding serious relationships since then, focusing entirely on her career. Eleanor processes this information like a general studying battlefield intelligence. A woman wounded by betrayal might be more susceptible to genuine devotion, or more likely to sabotage a promising relationship out of fear. Either scenario presents opportunities for manipulation. And her current financial situation? Stable, but not extravagant. She owns a modest apartment in Tribeca, drives a reliable sedan, donates significant amounts to literacy charities. No obvious gold digger behaviors, but a woman making millions might still be attracted to a man worth hundreds of millions, Eleanor finishes, especially if he can provide the security her previous relationship failed to offer. Mrs. Kang, with respect, the photographs suggest genuine affection on both sides. Perhaps this relationship could what? Eleanor's voice cuts like ice. Could provide my son with the fairy tale romance he deserves? Could give me grandchildren who don't share our family's heritage? Could create a media spectacle that overshadows every business decision he makes for the rest of his life? Taehyun falls silent. He's known Eleanor for 15 years, and he recognizes the tone that precedes her most ruthless strategic decisions. Minjun has responsibilities that transcend personal happiness, she continues. Kang Industries employs 40,000 people worldwide. Our family's choices affect thousands of investors, hundreds of business partners, entire communities that depend on our economic stability. I will not allow an infatuation to jeopardize that legacy. And if Minjun refuses to end the relationship? Eleanor's smile is sharp as winter wind. Then I'll have to handle Miss Peterson directly. The sedan pulls up to the Kang family's Manhattan penthouse, and Eleanor steps onto the sidewalk with the confidence of someone who has never lost a battle when the stakes truly mattered. She doesn't know that at this very moment, her son is holding Janelle's hand across a small table in Koreatown, making promises about fighting for their connection no matter what obstacles arise. She doesn't know that Janelle Peterson has already survived poverty, loss, betrayal, and the brutal rejection of the publishing industry, experiences that have forged steel beneath her gentle exterior. But Eleanor Kang is about to discover that some love stories are strong enough to survive even the most formidable opposition. The war for Minjun's heart is about to begin, and neither woman is prepared to surrender without revealing exactly how far she's willing to go for love. Eleanor doesn't wait for formal introductions. She appears at Amoni's kitchen like an elegant hurricane, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors with military precision. The elderly Korean owner recognizes her immediately. Everyone in Koreatown knows the matriarch of Kang Industries, and rushes to escort her to the private dining room, where Min-jun and Janelle sit in intimate conversation. "Mother." Min-jun rises quickly, his body language shifting to practiced formality. "I wasn't expecting you until this evening." Clearly. Eleanor's gaze sweeps over the scene, their hands linked across the small table, the evident comfort between them, her son's relaxed posture that she hasn't witnessed in years. "Miss Peterson, I presume." Janelle stands gracefully, extending her hand for a polite shake. "Mrs. Kang, it's a pleasure to meet you." Eleanor takes the offered hand, her grip firm and assessing. She's evaluating everything. Janelle's confident posture, her understated but expensive jewelry, the way she meets Eleanor's scrutinizing gaze without flinching. The younger woman is more formidable than the photograph suggested. "Please, join us," Min-jun says, though tension radiates from every line of his body. "I prefer to speak privately with Miss Peterson first," Eleanor replies. "Min-jun, perhaps you could arrange for our transportation back to the penthouse." It's not a request. Min-jun recognizes the tone that has commanded corporate boardrooms for 3 decades, and his jaw tightens. "Mother, I don't think—" "It's all right," Janelle interrupts gently. "Your mother and I should talk." The moment Min-jun reluctantly steps away, Eleanor settles into his vacated chair like a queen claiming a throne. The server, sensing the shift in atmosphere, quickly refreshes their tea and retreats to a respectful distance. "You're quite beautiful," Eleanor begins, her tone conversational but her eyes calculating. "I can see why my son is attracted to you." "Thank you," Janelle replies carefully. "Beauty fades, of course, particularly under the pressures that come with being associated with our family." Eleanor sips her tea delicately. "Tell me, Miss Peterson, what do you know about Korean business culture? I imagine it's quite different from American publishing." "Indeed. In Korea, family reputation affects every transaction, every partnership, every opportunity. When my son marries, and he will marry, as heir to our company, his wife becomes part of our brand. Her background, her behavior, her cultural compatibility with our shareholders and business partners, all of it reflects on Kang Industries." Janelle keeps her expression neutral, though she feels the subtle violence of Eleanor's words. "I see. Do you? Because I'm not certain you understand the level of scrutiny that would accompany a serious relationship with Min-jun. The Korean media can be particularly unforgiving toward foreign women who appear to be social climbing. The accusation hangs in the air like smoke." Janelle sets down her teacup with deliberate calm, her voice steady when she responds. "Mrs. Kang, I've built my career on my own merit. I don't need your son's money or status." "Need and want are different things," Eleanor observes, "and even successful women can be seduced by the lifestyle that $800 million can provide." "Is that what you think this is? Seduction by luxury?" "I think you're an intelligent woman who recognized an opportunity last night and seized it skillfully. I also think you're unprepared for what pursuing that opportunity will cost you." Eleanor reaches into her handbag and withdraws a tablet, sliding it across the table to display a collection of articles and blog posts that have appeared in the past 12 hours. The headlines are brutal. "Gold Digger Targets Korean Heir." "American Author's Calculated Romance." "Black Woman Infiltrates Asian Business Dynasty." Janelle's stomach churns as she scrolls through the xenophobic and racist commentary, The speculation about her motives, the dissection of her background and finances, the cruelty of anonymous internet voices feels like acid on her skin. "This is just the beginning," Eleanor says softly. "If you continue this relationship, every aspect of your life will be analyzed, criticized, and twisted to fit whatever narrative generates the most clicks. Your privacy will disappear. Your reputation will be questioned daily. Your every public appearance will be scrutinized for evidence that you don't belong in our world. And you think I'll run away to avoid the discomfort?" Janelle says quietly. "I think you're human. And humans have limits." Janelle studies Eleanor's face, seeing the calculation beneath the concern. This woman isn't trying to protect her from media harassment. She's wielding it like a weapon, demonstrating the pain she's willing to inflict to achieve her goals. "Mrs. Kang," Janelle says finally, "I've been poor, orphaned, and rejected more times than I can count. I've survived worse than bad publicity. But have you survived it while watching someone you care about suffer because of you? Because that's what loving my son means. Watching him choose between his family legacy and his personal happiness, knowing that either choice will cause him pain." The words hit their target. Janelle sees the trap being constructed around her emotions, the way Eleanor is positioning love itself as the enemy of Min-jun's well-being. "You're asking me to break his heart to save him," she says. "I'm asking you to consider whether your presence in his life will ultimately help or harm him. A woman who truly loves him would want what's best for his future, wouldn't she?" Before Janelle can respond, Min-jun returns, immediately sensing the tension crackling between the two women. "Is everything all right? Your mother was just explaining the challenges of international relationships," Janelle replies, her voice carefully modulated. Eleanor rises smoothly. "I've said what needed to be said. Miss Peterson, I trust you'll consider our conversation carefully." She turns to her son. "Min-jun, we'll discuss this further at home." As Eleanor glides away, Min-jun sits beside Janelle, noting the pallor in her cheeks and the slight tremor in her hands. "What did she say to you?" "She showed me what loving you will cost," Janelle admits quietly. "And?" Janelle looks at him. This man who has somehow become essential to her happiness in less than 24 hours, and makes a choice that will reshape both their destinies. "I've never backed down from a challenge that mattered," she says, reaching for his hand. "And you, Kang Min-jun, matter more than I'm comfortable admitting." Bye. But as they walk out of the restaurant together, neither notices Eleanor's sedan parked across the street, or the private investigator in the passenger seat, already making calls to activate the most thorough background investigation money can buy. Sarah Mitchell has always possessed an investigative instinct that served her well as a literary agent. While other agents rely on publishers' marketing departments for information, Sarah digs deeper, uncovering the stories behind the stories that help her negotiate better deals for her clients. Tonight, that instinct is screaming warnings about the Kang family. She sits in her Upper East Side office at 11 p.m., surrounded by printouts of Korean business articles, financial reports, and social media posts that paint a complex picture of Min-jun's world. The official narrative is pristine: successful heir, devoted son, philanthropic businessman. But Sarah has learned to look for gaps in perfect stories, and the Kang family history has several. The most significant gap is 7 years old and named Han Jin-ho. Min-jun's younger brother appears in family photos until 2018, then vanishes completely from public records. The official story is simple: tragic car accident, private funeral, family grief. But Sarah's journalist contacts in Seoul tell a different story. Whispers of a suicide, a forbidden relationship, and a family cover-up that reached the highest levels of Korean society. Her phone buzzes with a text from Janelle. "Dinner tomorrow? Need to talk." Sarah responds immediately. "My place, 7 p.m. I'm cooking." Whoa! What she doesn't text is the growing certainty that Janelle is walking into emotional quicksand, and that Eleanor Kang has already begun constructing traps that could destroy both her friend's heart and her career. Meanwhile, across town in the Kang penthouse, Min-jun stands on his terrace overlooking Central Park, his phone pressed to his ear as he speaks to Tae-hyun in Seoul. "She's planning something," he says quietly. "My mother doesn't fly internationally for casual conversations. She came here to end this relationship, and since her initial approach with Janelle clearly failed, she'll escalate." "What do you want me to do?" Tae-hyun asks. "Find out what she's really afraid of. This isn't just about family reputation or business concerns. There's something else. Something that makes the thought of me being happy with Janelle genuinely terrifying to her." Tae-hyun is quiet for a moment. When he speaks again, his voice is careful. "Min-jun, you need to consider the possibility that your mother isn't the villain in this situation. Maybe she knows something about love and loss that you don't." Such as? Such as what happened to Jin-ho. The name hits Min-jun like a physical blow. His younger brother, dead at 26, officially a victim of tragic circumstances, but privately a cautionary tale that Eleanor has never stopped telling. Jin-ho loved recklessly, chose passion over duty, and paid the ultimate price for defying family expectations. "That was different," Min-jun says finally. "Was it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like history trying to repeat itself. The heir to Kang Industries falls in love with someone the family deems unsuitable, and Eleanor Kang moves heaven and earth to prevent a tragedy she believes she's already witnessed once." Min-jun closes his eyes, remembering Jin-ho's infectious laugh, his younger brother's absolute faith in happy endings, the way Jin-ho had defied their mother's warnings right up until the night he drove his car off a bridge in Busan. "Janelle isn't going to destroy herself for love," he says firmly. "But would you?" The question hangs in the night air, unanswered and dangerous. Because Min-jun knows the truth that Tae-hyun is too loyal to voice directly. Yes, he would risk everything for Janelle Peterson. His business empire, his family legacy, his carefully constructed life, all of it feels negotiable in the face of what he felt when she smiled at him across that restaurant table. And that, more than any media scandal or cultural clash, is exactly what Eleanor Kang fears most. In her own penthouse bedroom, Eleanor sits at her antique writing desk, composing an email to her head of security in Seoul. The message is brief and coded, but its meaning is clear. Activate every resource, investigate every connection, find the leverage that will make Janelle Peterson walk away voluntarily. She's not being cruel, she tells herself. She's being practical. Love is a beautiful luxury that people like Min-jun cannot afford. And if Janelle truly cares for him, she'll eventually understand that some sacrifices are necessary to protect the people we love most. Eleanor has made such sacrifices herself. The photo on her desk shows her 3 decades younger, standing beside a handsome man who isn't her late husband. The man in the photo has kind eyes and calloused hands, and if circumstances had been different, if family expectations and social pressures hadn't intervened, he might have been Min-jun's father instead of the cold, strategic marriage that actually produced her children. She touches the glass gently, remembering the choice she made between love and duty, between personal happiness and family legacy. The choice that gave her 2 sons and a business empire, but left her heart permanently scarred. "I won't let you make my mistakes," she whispers to the empty room, though she's not certain whether she's addressing Min-jun or Janelle. But some mistakes, she'll learn, are worth making. And some love stories are strong enough to survive even the most painful family secrets. The private dining room at Le Bernardin feels like a confession booth as Janelle picks at her perfectly prepared sea bass and watches Sarah scroll through the disturbing results of her unofficial investigation into the Kang family. The restaurant's hushed elegance provides privacy for conversations that could reshape lives. And tonight, both women sense they're standing at a crossroads. "I need you to promise me something," Sarah says without preamble. "Promise me you'll listen to all of this before you react." That sounds ominous. It is. Sarah slides a manila folder across the white tablecloth. Jinho Kang died 7 years ago, officially in a car accident. But 3 sources in Seoul, journalists who covered the story, all say the same thing. The accident scene was inconsistent with the police report. Janelle opens the folder with trembling fingers. Inside are copies of Korean newspaper articles, their Hangul text accompanied by rough translations Sarah has commissioned. The photos show a mangled luxury sedan at the bottom of a ravine, but the accompanying text raises questions about the trajectory, the timing, and the absence of skid marks that would indicate an attempt to brake. "Suicide?" Janelle asks quietly. That's what people whispered. But here's where it gets complicated. Jinho wasn't alone in that car. Sarah pulls out another document. There was a woman with him, 22 years old, art student at Seoul National University, named Lee So-young. Janelle's blood chills. They both died. No, that's the strange part. She survived barely. Spent 3 months in a coma, another year in rehabilitation. But after she recovered, she disappeared completely. No graduation records, no employment history, no social media presence. It's like she ceased to exist. "People don't just vanish," Janelle objects. "They do if someone with enough money and influence wants them to." Sarah's expression is grim. "I found one more thing. A transfer of 50 million won to a bank account registered under Lee So-young's name, dated 2 weeks after the accident, the same day she was discharged from the hospital. The implication hangs between them like poison. Eleanor Kang paid the survivor to disappear, to maintain whatever fiction protected the family's reputation and prevented difficult questions about Jinho's death." "Sarah," Janelle says slowly, "why are you telling me this?" "Because Eleanor Kang has already started investigating you. My contacts in the literary world say private investigators have been asking questions about your finances, your past relationships, your family history. She's building a file on you, Janelle, and based on what she did to So-young, I don't think she'll stop at paying you to leave quietly." Janelle pushes her plate away, her appetite completely gone. The thought of professional investigators digging through her life feels violating, but the comparison to So-young is terrifying. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that Eleanor Kang is a woman who will destroy anyone who threatens her family's image. Jinho fell in love with someone she deemed unsuitable, and when he refused to end the relationship, they both ended up dead or disappeared. Now Min-jun is following the same pattern. You think she would actually hurt me? I think she would do whatever necessary to protect her surviving son, and that, whatever necessary, might include things you can't imagine." Sarah reaches across the table to squeeze Janelle's hand. "I also think you're falling in love with Min-jun so fast that you're not thinking clearly about the risks." The words hit home because they're true. 3 days ago, Janelle had never heard of Kang Min-jun. Now, the thought of losing him creates a physical ache in her chest that feels dangerously close to desperation. "What would you do?" Janelle asks. "If you were me?" Sarah considers the question seriously. "If I thought the man was worth it. If I believed the connection was real and worth fighting for, I'd gather ammunition of my own. Eleanor Kang's power comes from information asymmetry. She knows everything about you while you know nothing about her secrets. Level the playing field. How? Find So Young. Find out what really happened 7 years ago and why Eleanor was willing to pay millions to keep it quiet. If you're going to war with the Kang family, you need to understand exactly what they're capable of and what they're most afraid of losing. Janelle stares out the restaurant's windows at the Manhattan street scene, watching ordinary people live ordinary lives, unburdened by the complexities of international romance and family vendettas. Part of her envies them their simplicity, their freedom to love without calculating corporate consequences and media scandals. But a larger part of her recognizes that she's already chosen her path. Min-jun has awakened something in her that she'd thought was permanently damaged by David's betrayal. The capacity to risk everything for love. And if Eleanor Kang wants to make that love a battle, then Janelle will learn to fight with the same ruthless intelligence that has made the Kang family empire possible. "Help me find her," Janelle says finally. Sarah nods, unsurprised by her friend's decision. "I've already started." But neither woman knows that at this very moment, Min-jun is making his own dangerous choice. One that will accelerate Eleanor's timeline and force all their secrets into the light. Min-jun makes his decision while standing in his mother's Manhattan penthouse at dawn, watching her methodically review financial reports as if the previous day's emotional confrontations were merely minor inconveniences to be managed. Her composure in the face of his obvious turmoil finally breaks something inside him. Not his love for her, but his willingness to subordinate his happiness to her fears. "Mother," he says quietly, "I'm going to see Janelle today, and I'm going to ask her to dinner tomorrow night, publicly, at Daniel, where we'll certainly be photographed." Eleanor doesn't look up from her papers. That would be inadvisable. "I'm not asking for advice. I'm informing you of my decision." Now she raises her eyes, and the calculation in them chills him. "Min-jun, you're allowing emotion to cloud your judgment. This woman is a distraction you cannot afford. This woman is the first person in 7 years who has made me want to wake up in the morning," he says with quiet intensity. "Since Jinho died, I've been sleepwalking through my life, doing what's expected, meeting every obligation, and feeling absolutely nothing. Janelle changed that in 20 minutes. At the mention of Jinho's name, Eleanor's mask slips momentarily, revealing something raw and desperate. Your brother made similar declarations about love conquering all obstacles. Do you remember how that ended? Jinho made different choices. Jinho defied family expectations for a woman who wasn't worth his sacrifice, just as you're doing now. The cruelty of reducing Jinho's death to a cautionary tale about inconvenient love makes Min-jun's chest burn with fury. Don't use his memory as a weapon against my happiness. I'm using his memory to save your life. Eleanor's composure finally cracks, revealing the terror she's been concealing. Do you think I enjoyed burying one son? Do you think I can survive burying another? The admission hangs between them, raw and devastating. For the first time, Min-jun sees past his mother's strategic maneuvering to the grief-stricken parent underneath, a woman so traumatized by loss that she's willing to sacrifice his happiness to prevent what she perceives as inevitable tragedy. Mother, he says gently, I'm not Jinho, and Janelle isn't So Young. Eleanor goes completely still. How do you know about So Young? I know enough. I know you paid her to disappear after the accident. I know you've been investigating Janelle the same way you investigated Jinho's girlfriend. And I know you're prepared to destroy anyone who threatens your control over this family. I protected this family, Eleanor says fiercely. I protected you from the scandal that would have destroyed everything we've built. So Young was a liability, unstable, traumatized, potentially willing to say anything for money or attention. I solved the problem quietly. You silenced a traumatized girl who'd lost the man she loved. I prevented her from taking you down with her grief. Eleanor rises from her chair, every inch the corporate warrior she's been for 3 decades. Minjun, you can hate me for the choices I've made, but you cannot ignore their necessity. Kang Industries supports 40,000 employees and their families. Our family name opens doors throughout Asia that create opportunities for countless people. Your personal happiness, while important to me as your mother, cannot take precedence over those responsibilities. And if I choose Janelle anyway, Eleanor's smile is sharp with certainty, then you'll discover that Miss Peterson isn't as committed to this romance as you believe. People have limits, son. Even people who love you. The threat is clear, though wrapped in maternal concern. Eleanor will make loving him so painful for Janelle that she'll eventually walk away to protect herself. The strategy that worked with So Young will be refined and applied with surgical precision. Minjun moves toward the door, then pauses. Mother, I want you to understand something. If you hurt Janelle, if you drive her away through manipulation or threats or any of the tactics you've perfected over the years, you will lose me permanently. Not just my obedience or my cooperation, but my presence in your life entirely. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more. His voice carries absolute conviction. I spent 7 years drowning in guilt over Jinho's death, convinced that if I'd been a better brother, a more supportive family member, maybe he'd still be alive. But I realize now that Jinho didn't die because he loved the wrong person. He died because he felt trapped between love and duty and saw no way to honor both. Eleanor's face is pale, but her expression remains defiant. I refuse to be trapped the same way. Minjun continues. So choose carefully, Mother. You can have a son who loves Janelle Peterson and still respects his family obligations. Or you can have no son at all. He leaves Eleanor standing alone in her perfectly appointed penthouse, surrounded by the symbols of power and success that have been her consolation for every personal sacrifice she's made. For the first time in decades, she wonders if the price of protecting her family has been the destruction of everything she was trying to preserve. But Eleanor Kang didn't build an empire by surrendering at the first sign of opposition. And some battles, she knows, are won not through direct confrontation, but by forcing the enemy to defeat themselves. Janelle's phone rings at 6 a.m. with a call that will change everything. The voice on the other end is professional, courteous, and devastating. Miss Peterson, this is Dr. Rebecca Chen from Mount Sinai Hospital. We have you listed as the emergency contact for Sarah Mitchell. I'm afraid there's been an accident. The subway ride to the hospital passes in a blur of fluorescent tunnel lights and strangers' faces that swim in and out of focus as Janelle struggles to process the paramedics' preliminary report. Sarah's car collided with a delivery truck at 5:30 a.m. in Queens, far from her usual Manhattan routes, under circumstances that make no immediate sense. Minjun meets her in the hospital waiting room, having received her frantic call while he was preparing for an early morning board meeting. He takes one look at her stricken face and pulls her into his arms without hesitation, ignoring the stares of other visitors who recognize him from yesterday's gossip column photos. "How is she?" he asks quietly. Stable but unconscious. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, possible brain trauma. Janelle's voice is steady, but her hands shake against his chest. "The police want to talk to me about why she was in Queens at dawn. Do you know?" Janelle pulls back to meet his eyes, and the fear in her expression makes his stomach drop. "She found her, Minjun. She found So Young." The name hits him like cold water. "What?" Sarah located Jinho's girlfriend. So Young has been living in Queens under a different name, working as a seamstress in a Korean garment district. Sarah was going to meet her this morning to ask about the accident, about your mother's payment, about what really happened 7 years ago. Min-jun's blood turns to ice. Where is So Young now? Missing. Her landlord says she left during the night with a single suitcase. No forwarding address, no explanation. Janelle's voice drops to a whisper. Min-jun, this wasn't an accident. Someone wanted to prevent Sarah from talking to So Young, and they were willing to hurt her to make it happen. The implications crash over him like a tidal wave. His mother's quiet efficiency, her absolute certainty that problems can be managed, her network of security personnel and private contractors who ask no questions about their assignments. I have to go, he says suddenly. Where? To confront my mother. To end this before anyone else gets hurt. Janelle catches his arm as he turns to leave. Min-jun, wait. If Eleanor is responsible for this, if she's willing to hurt innocent people to protect her secrets, then confronting her directly puts you at risk too. I can't let her think that threatening the people I care about is an acceptable strategy. Then don't go alone. They stare at each other across the sterile hospital waiting room. Two people who've known each other for 4 days, but who have already become essential to each other's emotional survival. The connection that felt like destiny now feels like a liability, making them both vulnerable to a woman who views love as the enemy of family loyalty. Janelle, he says carefully, I need you to consider the possibility that being with me will continue to put you and the people you love in danger. If my mother is willing to orchestrate Sarah's accident to prevent unwanted revelations, what else might she be willing to do? Are you asking me to walk away? I'm asking if you're strong enough to stay. The question hangs between them like a challenge and a plea, because Min-jun knows that loving him means entering a war zone where the casualties include anyone who gets too close to family secrets that have been buried for 7 years. Janelle thinks about Sarah lying unconscious 3 floors above them, about So Young disappearing into the night, about the photos and investigations and threats that have already begun to reshape her quiet literary life into something resembling a corporate thriller. She thinks about David's betrayal 2 years ago and her hard-won independence, about the security she's built through her own success and the privacy she's carefully maintained. All of it feels fragile now, vulnerable to forces she's only beginning to understand. But she also thinks about the way Min-jun looked at her across that restaurant table. The recognition in his eyes that matched something deep in her soul. The feeling that she'd been unconsciously searching for him her entire life without knowing it. I'm strong enough, she says firmly. But I'm not stupid enough to fight Eleanor Kang without ammunition. Min-jun's expression shifts from worry to something resembling admiration, as he realizes that the woman he's falling in love with is preparing for war. The ICU waiting room becomes their war council. While Sarah remains unconscious, monitored by machines that beep with mechanical regularity, Janelle and Min-jun forge a partnership that will either save their relationship or destroy them both. Tae-hyun arrives within the hour, his usually composed demeanor shaken by the news of Sarah's accident. He brings a manila envelope thick with documents, financial records, security footage from the garment district, and a series of wire transfers that paint a disturbing picture of Eleanor's methods. She's been monitoring both of you since the charity gala, he reports quietly, glancing around to ensure they're not overheard. Tracking your movements, your communications, your schedules. Sarah's investigation into So Young triggered an immediate response. What kind of response? Janelle asks, though she dreads the answer. Tae-hyun opens the envelope and spreads photographs across the small table. They show Sarah's car at various locations throughout the week. Outside Janelle's apartment, parked near the library where she'd been researching Korean business records, stopped at the diner where she'd met with her journalist contacts. "Your friend was more thorough than Eleanor anticipated," he continues. "She found not just So Young's current identity, but also her medical records from after the accident. Sarah discovered something that Eleanor thought was buried forever." Min-jun leans forward. "What?" "So Young was pregnant when the accident happened. She lost the baby in the crash. The revelation hits like a physical blow." Janelle's hand flies to her mouth while Min-jun goes completely pale. The tragedy becomes exponentially more complex. Not just the death of his brother and the silencing of a witness, but the loss of a child who would have been Eleanor's grandchild. "My God," Min-jun whispers. "Jin-ho was going to be a father. Eleanor knew," Tae-hyun says grimly. "The medical records show she was listed as the emergency contact after So Young's family disowned her for the pregnancy. Eleanor made every decision about So Young's medical care while she was in the coma, including the authorization for the surgery that saved her life. So she wasn't just covering up a scandal," Janelle realizes. "She was covering up the death of her own grandchild. A grandchild who would have legitimized Jin-ho's relationship with So Young, who would have made it impossible for Eleanor to dismiss their love as a youthful mistake." Min-jun's voice carries the weight of profound betrayal. "She paid So Young to disappear because dead babies tell no tales about family legacies. The cruelty of it, using money to silence a grieving mother, erasing not just a relationship but an entire lineage, makes them all sit in stunned silence. Eleanor's actions weren't just about protecting her family's reputation. They were about rewriting history to match her preferred narrative." "Where did Sarah get the medical records?" Janelle asks. "A nurse who was on duty during So Young's hospitalization. She kept copies because she suspected something wasn't right about the family's behavior. She never spoke up at the time. Eleanor can be very persuasive, and the nurse needed her job. But when Sarah started asking questions, she decided it was time for the truth. And now?" Tae-hyun's expression darkens. "The nurse called in sick this morning and hasn't been seen since. Her apartment appears to have been vacated in a hurry." Another disappearance, another witness silenced. Eleanor's efficiency in eliminating problems is becoming clear. She doesn't just buy silence, she orchestrates complete erasure of inconvenient truths. "We need to find So Young," Janelle says. "She's the only person who can verify what really happened, and she's running out of places to hide." "Assuming she's willing to talk," Min-jun points out. "Eleanor's been supporting her for 7 years. That kind of financial dependency creates complicated loyalties. Or complicated resentments," Janelle counters. "A woman who's been paid to forget her dead child and disappear from her life might be ready to tell the truth, especially if she realizes that staying quiet puts other people in danger." Tae-hyun considers this. "I might be able to help. My firm handles immigration cases, and So Young's legal status has always been precarious. If Eleanor's payments stopped suddenly, which they would if she felt threatened, So Young might be desperate enough to accept protection in exchange for testimony. That's assuming we can find her before Eleanor does," Min-jun says. "We have one advantage," Janelle points out. "Eleanor doesn't know that we know about the pregnancy. She thinks the only threat is So Young talking about the accident itself, not about what she lost in it. It's a slim advantage, but it's something." They spend the next hour developing a plan that feels both desperate and necessary. Tracking down a traumatized woman who's been hiding for 7 years, convincing her to risk everything by going public with a story that could destroy one of Korea's most powerful families, all while staying ahead of Eleanor's security network and private investigators. When visiting hours begin, they take turns sitting with Sarah, who remains unconscious but stable, Janelle holds her friend's hand and whispers, promises about finding the truth, about making sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. Minjun watches from the doorway, seeing the fierce loyalty that drives the woman he's falling in love with. Janelle Peterson isn't just beautiful and talented. She's someone who fights for the people she cares about, even when it puts her own safety at risk. She's going to wake up asking about the story, Janelle says when she rejoins him in the corridor. Sarah doesn't give up on anything, especially when it involves protecting someone she loves. Like you, he observes. Like us, she corrects. Because whether your mother likes it or not, we're in this together now. But as they leave the hospital, neither notices the black sedan that pulls away from the parking garage behind them, or the driver speaking rapidly in Korean into his phone, reporting their every movement to Eleanor Kang. So Young isn't hard to find once they know where to look. Korean immigrant communities in New York are tight-knit networks where everyone knows everyone, and a woman who's been living quietly for 7 years under an assumed name still leaves traces for those determined enough to follow them. The trail leads to a small Catholic church in Flushing, where So Young has been attending early morning mass 3 times a week for the past 4 years. Father Miguel, the elderly priest who conducts the Korean language services, remembers her well, a sad woman who prays intensely and leaves generous donations despite her modest appearance. She lost a child, he tells them in heavily accented English, unaware of how much more complicated the story truly is. I could see it in her eyes, the kind of grief that never fully heals. She asked me once about forgiveness, whether some sins are too great to be absolved. Janelle and Minjun exchange glances across the parish office. The priest's description of So Young as a woman haunted by guilt suggests she blames herself for Jinho's death, for the accident that took both her lover and her unborn child. Did she mention any family? Any friends who might know where she's gone? Taehyun asks. Father Miguel hesitates, clearly torn between pastoral discretion and concern for So Young's welfare. She spoke of a woman who helped her, who sent money. But lately, she seemed frightened of this woman. She asked about sanctuary, about what the church could do to protect someone who needed to tell the truth, but was afraid of the consequences. When was this? Minjun asks urgently. 3 days ago. The same day she didn't come to morning mass for the first time in years. The timeline aligns perfectly with Sarah's investigation and Eleanor's escalation. So Young knew that the past was catching up with her, and she'd been preparing to either run or fight. The question is which choice she made. Their next stop is the Garment District workshop where So Young had been employed. The owner, Mrs. Kim, is initially reluctant to discuss a former employee, but Minjun's fluent Korean and gentle persistence eventually convince her to share what she knows. Jung-mi was a good worker, she says, using So Young's assumed name. Quiet, skilled with difficult alterations, but she lived like a ghost, like someone afraid of being seen. She never talked about her past, never joined the other women for lunch or gossip. Did she leave anything behind? Any personal belongings? Janelle asks through Minjun's translation. Mrs. Kim disappears into the back office and returns with a small cardboard box. Inside are mundane items, sewing scissors, a worn pin cushion, a thermos. But at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, is a photograph. The image shows a much younger So Young, standing beside Jinho on what appears to be a university campus. They're both laughing, his arm around her shoulders, her hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. It's the only physical evidence of their relationship that has survived Eleanor's systematic erasure of their love story. Minjun stares at the photo with tears in his eyes. This is his brother, as he remembers him. Joyful, hopeful, completely in love. The man in the photograph believed in happy endings. in the possibility of building a life with the woman he loved and the child they'd created together. She came back for this 2 nights ago, Mrs. Kim continues. Very late, after the shop was closed. She had keys because I trusted her with security sometimes. She took the photograph and left an envelope for me. The envelope contains $500 in cash and a note written in Korean. Thank you for giving me a place to exist when I couldn't remember how to live. If anyone comes asking about Youngmi, tell them she died 7 years ago. Only So Young remains. The message is clear. She's reclaiming her original identity, preparing to step out of the shadows and face whatever consequences await. But where would a traumatized woman with limited resources and no family support go when she's ready to tell the truth? The media, Janelle realizes suddenly. If she wants to expose Eleanor, she needs protection that only public attention can provide. Somewhere she can tell her story safely, where harming her would create more problems than it solves. Taehyun nods slowly. The Korean-American press would be interested in a story this explosive. Family scandals involving the business elite always generate significant coverage. But which outlet would she trust? And would she have the connections to reach them? Minjun asks. The answer comes from an unexpected source. As they leave the garment workshop, Janelle's phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. If you want the truth about Jin-ho, meet me at the Korean War Veterans Memorial in Battery Park. Come alone, and come now. So Young. It's a trap, Taehyun says immediately. Eleanor could have forced her to send that message. Or So Young could be ready to tell her story to the people who have the most reason to listen, Janelle counters. She knows we've been looking for her. Maybe she's decided it's time to stop running. Minjun studies the message, noting the specificity of the location. The memorial is public but relatively quiet during weekday afternoons, offering both safety and privacy for a conversation that could reshape multiple lives. I'm going, Janelle decides. Not alone, Minjun says firmly. She asked for a loan. If we want her trust, we need to respect her terms. And if it is a trap? If my mother's people are using So Young to get to you? Janelle looks at him steadily. Then we'll learn exactly how far Eleanor is willing to go to protect her secrets. And we'll make sure the whole world learns it too. And as she heads toward Battery Park, Janelle doesn't know that So Young isn't the only person waiting for her at the memorial, or that Eleanor Kang has decided that some conversations are too dangerous to be allowed to happen. The Korean War Veterans Memorial sits quietly in Battery Park, its black granite walls etched with the names of those who died in a conflict that shaped both nations' histories. It's fitting, Janelle thinks as she approaches, that the truth about the Kang family's buried secrets should be revealed in a place dedicated to remembering sacrifice and loss. So Young is smaller than she appeared in the photographs, a woman diminished by years of hiding, but with an intensity in her dark eyes that speaks of decisions finally made. She wears a simple black coat and carries a worn leather purse clutched tightly in both hands. Miss Peterson, she says in careful English, thank you for coming alone. Thank you for trusting me, Janelle replies, settling beside her on the memorial bench. I know this must be difficult. Difficult with 7 years of silence. This is necessary. So Young's voice is soft but steady. Your friend, the red-haired woman, is she alive? Yes, but she's unconscious. The doctors say she'll recover, but it could take time. So Young nods, her expression pained. I am sorry. I should have spoken sooner before anyone was hurt. But I was afraid, and Mrs. Kang made fear seem like wisdom. What really happened 7 years ago? Janelle asks gently. So Young is quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the edge of her purse. When she speaks, her voice carries the weight of grief that has never been properly mourned. Jin-ho and I were going to run away together. To America, where his mother's influence couldn't reach us. We had saved money, applied for visas, planned everything carefully. I was 4 months pregnant, just beginning to show. She pauses, and Janelle sees tears gathering in her eyes. But Mrs. Kang discovered our plans. She came to see me while Jin-ho was in a business meeting he couldn't avoid. She offered me money, enough to disappear, to start over somewhere far away. She said Jin-ho would forget me eventually, that he was young, and would find someone more suitable when his responsibilities as heir became clear. What did you tell her? I told her that I loved Jin-ho, and that he loved me, and that our baby deserved to have both parents. So-young's voice hardens. She laughed. She said that bastard children of unsuitable women don't deserve anything except to be hidden away where they can't embarrass their betters. The cruelty of Eleanor's words makes Janelle's stomach turn. To reduce a pregnancy to an embarrassment, a child to a liability, it reveals the depth of her willingness to dehumanize anyone who threatens her version of family propriety. I refused her money and told her that Jin-ho and I were leaving Korea the next night. She seemed to accept this, even wished me luck. I thought perhaps she had realized that fighting us would only push Jin-ho further away. But she hadn't accepted it. Janelle guesses. No. The next evening, Jin-ho picked me up in his car. We were driving to Busan to catch a private boat that would take us to Japan, where we could fly to America without using official airports where Mrs. Kang might have people watching. We were so careful, but not careful enough. So-young stops, her breathing becoming labored. Janelle can see that reliving this memory is physically painful, but she doesn't interrupt. Some stories need to be told completely to be believed. There was another car following us. Black sedan, just like the one Mrs. Kang always used. We thought it was coincidence at first. But when Jin-ho changed routes, it changed too. He was trying to lose them, driving faster, taking turns that were dangerous in the dark. The other car forced you off the road? No. So-young's voice drops to a whisper. Jin-ho pulled over. He said he wouldn't risk my life and the baby's life in a car chase. He said he would call his mother and end this confrontation once and for all. The phone call. Eleanor never mentioned a phone call in any of her versions of the events. What did she say to him? I could only hear his side of the conversation, but it was terrible. He was pleading with her, then arguing, then becoming more and more upset. Finally, he was crying. I had never seen Jin-ho cry. So-young reaches into her purse and pulls out an old cell phone, a model from 7 years ago. Its screen cracked, but apparently functional. I recorded the conversation, she admits. I knew that Mrs. Kang would deny whatever she said to him, and I wanted proof of how she treated her own son. Janelle's heart pounds. Do you still have the recording? Yes. Would you like to hear what Eleanor Kang said to make her son drive off a cliff with the woman he loved and his unborn child? The question hangs in the air like a blade. Janelle knows that whatever is on that phone will change everything. Not just her understanding of Eleanor's capacity for cruelty, but the entire foundation of Min-jun's relationship with his mother. Play it, she says quietly. So-young's thumb hovers over the play button, and for a moment, Janelle sees not the traumatized woman she's become, but the young art student who fell in love with Jin-ho Kang and dreamed of building a life with him in America. The recording that begins to play will reveal the truth that Eleanor Kang has spent 7 years and millions of dollars to hide. But it will also unleash consequences that none of them are prepared to face. The voice that emerges from the cracked phone speaker is unmistakably Eleanor's, though stripped of the composed elegance Janelle has come to associate with the Kang matriarch. This is Eleanor in full fury, wielding words like weapons against her own son. You stupid, selfish boy. Do you think love excuses the destruction of everything your father and I built? Do you think your momentary happiness is worth the collapse of 40,000 jobs? Jinho's voice, younger and more desperate than Min-jun's but recognizably similar. Mother, please. So Young and I can make this work. We don't need to be in Seoul. I can run the American operations from New York. Keep building the company while you parade your pregnant mistress around international business circles, while our competitors whisper about the Kang heir who abandoned his responsibilities for a woman who trapped him with pregnancy. The accusation hits like venom. Eleanor's willingness to reduce So Young to a gold digger and the pregnancy to a trap reveals the depth of her contempt for her son's choices. Jinho's voice becomes strained. She didn't trap me. I love her. We planned this baby together. You plan nothing. You're 26 years old and think with your hormones instead of your brain. That girl saw an opportunity to secure her future through you, and you were fool enough to believe it was love. Mother, stop. You don't know her. You don't know what we mean to each other. Eleanor's laugh is bitter and cold. I know enough. I know she comes from nothing, has nothing to offer our family except scandal and embarrassment. I know that bastard child she's carrying will never be acknowledged as a true Kang heir, and I know that if you proceed with this ridiculous escape plan, you will be dead to me. The silence that follows is devastating. Jinho's breathing is audible, ragged with emotion and disbelief. Dead to you? He finally manages. Financially, socially, and personally. I will remove you from the company, disinherit you completely, and ensure that no business in Korea or Japan will employ you. Your American visa applications will be mysteriously delayed or denied. Your bank accounts will be frozen. And when that girl realizes that you have nothing left to offer her except poverty and struggle, she will leave you for someone who can actually provide for her and her child. You would destroy me to prevent me from being happy? I would save you from destroying yourself. This infatuation will pass, Jinho. They always do. But the consequences of acting on it will follow you for the rest of your life. Jinho's voice, when it comes again, is barely a whisper. What if I choose her anyway? Then you choose to lose everything else. Your brother will become sole heir to Kang Industries. Your father's legacy will pass to Min-jun alone. And when you're struggling to support a family on whatever minimum wage job you can find in America, remember that you had the choice to be responsible and chose selfishness instead. The call continues for several more minutes, with Eleanor systematically dismantling every argument Jinho makes, every plan he's developed, every dream he's nurtured. She reveals intimate knowledge of their escape route, their financial preparations, even their intended destination in California. Her network of informants had been tracking them for weeks. The recording ends with Jinho's voice, hollow and defeated. I understand, Mother. I'll bring her home. But he didn't bring So Young home. Instead, he drove off the Busan Coastal Highway, choosing death over the impossible choice between love and family loyalty. So Young stops the playback and sits in silence, tears streaming down her face. Janelle feels nauseated by what she's heard. Not just Eleanor's cruelty, but the systematic way she trapped her own son between love and obligation until the only escape seemed to be no escape at all. He didn't intend to kill us, So Young says quietly. I don't think he even intended to kill himself. He was just broken. He kept driving faster and faster, crying and apologizing, saying he couldn't choose between me and his family. When I saw the cliff ahead, I tried to grab the wheel, but it was too late. You survived because you fought for survival, Janelle realizes. I survived because he threw his body over mine in the last second. Even dying, Jinho protected me and our baby. But the impact... She touches her stomach reflexively. I lost everything that mattered, and Mrs. Kang made sure I lost it quietly. The full horror of Eleanor's actions becomes clear. She hadn't just covered up a suicide. She'd orchestrated the circumstances that made suicide seem like the only option, then silenced the survivor who could testify to her manipulation. "Why are you telling me this now?" Janelle asks. "Because Mrs. Kang is doing it again. Different son, different woman, but the same tactics. She will destroy Minjun's happiness the same way she destroyed Jinho's, and she will convince herself that she's being protective rather than controlling." So Young reaches into her purse again and pulls out a small digital recorder, newer technology than the phone, clearly purchased recently. "I've made copies of everything. The phone recording, my medical records from the hospital, documentation of the money transfers, even photographs of my injuries. If something happens to me, if I disappear like the others, these recordings will be sent automatically to every major news outlet in Korea and America." "Others?" Janelle asks. "The nurse who helped your friend research my case. The journalist in Seoul who was investigating the accident. Anyone who gets too close to the truth about Jinho's death finds their life becoming very complicated very quickly." Eleanor's reach is more extensive than any of them realized. She's not just silencing individual threats. She's maintaining an entire network of surveillance and intimidation that spans 2 continents. "What do you want from me?" Janelle asks. "Help me tell this story properly. Your friend was investigating for you, but she's not the writer. You are. You understand how to make people care about the truth, how to make them see beyond the money and power to the human cost. It's a profound request, not just to expose Eleanor's crimes, but to give voice to Jinho's story, to honor the love that Eleanor tried to erase. And Minjun, he needs to hear this recording too." So Young nods sadly. He needs to understand that his mother's love is conditional, controlling, and ultimately destructive. He needs to know what she's capable of before she does to him what she did to Jinho. As they sit in the shadow of the memorial, both women know that the war for Minjun's heart and his life is about to escalate beyond anything Eleanor Kang has faced before. Minjun stands in his mother's penthouse office 3 hours later, the weight of So Young's recording burning like acid in his chest. Eleanor sits behind her mahogany desk, reviewing quarterly reports as if this were any ordinary business meeting. But he can see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers grip her gold pen too tightly. "You've been busy today," she says without looking up from her papers. "Visiting hospitals, meeting with lawyers, spending time with people who aren't good for you. I've been learning the truth about Jinho's death." Now she raises her eyes, and the calculation in them is sharper than he's ever seen it. "And what truth is that?" Minjun places the digital recorder on her desk. The small device sits between them like a loaded weapon, its red light blinking to indicate active recording. "The truth that you murdered your own son." Eleanor's expression doesn't change, but her hand still's on the pen. "That's a very serious accusation, Minjun. It's also accurate. I've heard the phone call, Mother. I've heard you systematically destroy every option Jinho had except death, then act surprised when he chose it. You heard one side of a conversation taken out of context by a traumatized woman who was looking for someone to blame for her loss." Eleanor's voice remains steady, but he notices she doesn't deny the recording's authenticity. "I heard you threaten to destroy him financially, socially, and personally if he chose love over family obligation. I heard you call his unborn child a bastard and his girlfriend a gold digger. I heard you make suicide seem like the only way to escape the trap you'd constructed around his life." Eleanor sets down her pen and looks at him directly. I heard a mother trying to save her son from a catastrophic mistake that would have ruined not just his life, but the lives of thousands of people who depend on our family's decisions. Sometimes love requires difficult choices, Minjun. Sometimes love requires letting the people we care about make their own choices, even when we disagree with them. Even when those choices destroy everything we've worked to build. Yes, he says firmly. Even then. Eleanor rises from her chair and moves to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook Central Park. Her reflection in the glass looks older than her 58 years, worn down by the weight of secrets she's carried alone. "Do you know what it was like?" she says quietly. "To build Kang Industries from the small textile company your grandfather left us? To fight for respect in boardrooms full of men who thought a woman had no business making corporate decisions? To sacrifice my own dreams, my own happiness, everything I wanted for myself, to ensure that my children would inherit something worthy of their potential. I know it was difficult." Difficult? She turns to face him, and for the first time, her composure cracks completely. "I gave up the man I loved to marry your father because it was a strategic alliance that would secure our family's future. I spent 30 years in a loveless marriage, playing the perfect corporate wife, smiling at events and entertaining clients while dying inside. Everything I sacrificed was for you and Jinho." The admission hits him like a physical blow. His parents' marriage had always seemed cordial but distant. He'd never suspected the depth of his mother's personal sacrifice. So when Jinho wanted to throw it all away for a girl who couldn't contribute to our family's legacy, yes, I fought him. When he was willing to destroy 40,000 jobs for his personal happiness, yes, I tried to make him see reason. And when he chose to die rather than live with the consequences of responsibility, I made sure his death wouldn't be in vain. By silencing So Young, by covering up the circumstances, by pretending his death was an accident instead of the result of your manipulation, by protecting this family's ability to continue supporting the people who depend on us. So Young's testimony would have destroyed Kang Industries, put thousands of people out of work, and accomplished nothing except satisfying her need for revenge against the woman she blamed for her losses. Eleanor moves back to her desk, her hands shaking slightly as she pours herself a glass of water. "I've lived with the guilt of Jinho's death every day for 7 years, Minjun. Do you think I don't know that my methods were brutal? Do you think I don't wish I could have found another way? But you're doing it again," he says quietly. "With me. With Janelle. You're using the same tactics that killed Jinho to try to control my life. Because I can't lose another son." The words come out raw, desperate. "I can't bury another child because I failed to protect him from his own poor judgment. So you'll destroy my happiness to preserve my life? If necessary, yes." The honesty is brutal, but complete. Eleanor Kang isn't a monster. She's a woman so traumatized by loss, so consumed by guilt, that she's willing to commit fresh cruelties to prevent what she perceives as inevitable tragedy. Minjun looks at his mother, really looks at her, and sees not the composed corporate matriarch he's known all his life, but a grieving parent who has convinced herself that love is the enemy of safety. "Mother," he says gently, "I'm not Jinho. And Janelle isn't So Young. We're not going to run away or make desperate choices or let family pressure drive us to tragedy. We're going to find a way to honor both love and responsibility, even if it's difficult. And if you can't, if choosing her means losing everything else, then I'll live with the consequences of my own decisions, not die from the weight of yours." Eleanor stares at him for a long moment, and he sees her calculating, weighing options, trying to determine how far she can push before losing him entirely. "The recording," she says finally. "What do you intend to do with it?" That depends on what you intend to do about Janelle. They face each other across the office that has been the center of Eleanor's power for decades. Two people who love each other but who define love in completely different ways. Some battles, Mother, aren't worth winning if victory costs you everything you were fighting to protect. But Eleanor Kang has never learned how to surrender, and some lessons can only be taught through consequences that reshape entire families forever. The call comes at 2 a.m., jarring Janelle from the first peaceful sleep she's had in days. Minjun's voice is tight with controlled panic. She's taken So Young. Janelle sits up in bed, instantly alert. What do you mean taken? So Young was supposed to check in with Taehyun every 4 hours after your meeting. She missed her 10 p.m. call, and when he went to the hotel where we'd arranged for her to stay, the room was empty. No signs of struggle, no note, just gone. The implications crash over Janelle like ice water. Eleanor's network of security personnel and private contractors, her demonstrated willingness to make people disappear, her pattern of eliminating threats before they can cause problems. "Where are you?" she asks, already getting dressed. "Driving to my mother's penthouse. This ends tonight, Janelle. I won't let her hurt anyone else to protect her version of family honor. Don't go alone. If she's desperate enough to kidnap So Young, I'm bringing the recording, and Taehyun, and enough legal documentation to ensure that anything she does to So Young becomes a federal crime with international implications." Minjun's voice is harder than she's ever heard it. "My mother may be ruthless, but she's not stupid. She'll release So Young rather than face the kind of scrutiny that would destroy everything she's worked to build." Janelle prays he's right, but Eleanor Kang has already demonstrated that her definition of acceptable losses is broader than most people's nightmares. "I'm coming with you," she decides. "Janelle, no. If this goes wrong, I want to be there. We're in this together, remember?" The silence that follows tells her he's weighing the risks, calculating the odds of keeping her safe versus the strength that comes from facing Eleanor as a united front. "Together," he agrees finally. "But we do this my way, with legal protection and witnesses and multiple exit strategies. And if she refuses to negotiate, then we release everything. The recording, So Young's testimony, the medical records, all of it. Let the world judge whether Eleanor Kang's version of protecting family is worth the destruction she's caused." They meet at the Kang penthouse at 3 a.m., a small army of legal and moral support. Minjun and Janelle, Taehyun carrying briefcases full of evidence, and Dr. Chen from the hospital, who has agreed to serve as a medical witness to the connection between So Young's current condition and her treatment 7 years ago. Eleanor greets them in her living room, as if she's been expecting this confrontation for days. She's dressed in an elegant robe and slippers, her hair perfectly arranged despite the early hour, every inch the composed matriarch even in crisis. "Minjun," she says calmly, "you've brought quite an entourage." "Where is So Young?" he asks without preamble. "Safe, comfortable, being cared for by medical professionals who understand her. Fragile mental state." The phrasing is carefully chosen, Janelle realizes. Eleanor is framing So Young's disappearance as protective custody rather than kidnapping, positioning herself as the concerned guardian rather than the perpetrator. "Let me see her," Minjun demands. That wouldn't be wise. She's having what the doctors call a psychological episode, reliving past traumas, making wild accusations, threatening to hurt herself if she doesn't receive immediate attention. Sometimes people who've experienced significant loss develop elaborate fantasies to explain their pain. It's a masterful trap. If So Young has been sedated or medically confined, her testimony becomes questionable. If she's been labeled as mentally unstable, her credibility is destroyed. Eleanor has found a way to silence her primary witness while appearing to act in the woman's best interests. That won't work, Taehyun says quietly, opening his briefcase. We have copies of everything. The recording, the medical records, the financial transfers. So Young's current mental state doesn't negate the evidence of what happened 7 years ago. Eleanor's smile is sharp as winter wind. Evidence obtained through harassment of a traumatized woman by people seeking to exploit her grief for their own purposes? Evidence that includes recordings made without consent during a family crisis? I believe my lawyers would have several compelling arguments about admissibility. In a Korean court, maybe, Dr. Chen speaks for the first time, her voice carrying professional authority. But So Young is an American resident now, and the crimes being discussed occurred partially in international waters during what appears to have been a human trafficking situation. The jurisdiction issues alone would take years to resolve, during which time every piece of evidence would be subject to international legal scrutiny. Eleanor's composure flickers slightly. The complexity of fighting a legal battle across multiple countries while maintaining control of a multinational corporation is daunting, even for someone with her resources. What do you want? She asks finally. Min-jun looks at Janelle, then back at his mother. I want So Young released unharmed. I want her medical and financial support to continue, but without the conditions that have kept her silent. And I want your word that you will not interfere with my relationship with Janelle. And in exchange, we don't release the recording. We don't pursue criminal charges. We don't destroy the reputation you've spent your life building. Eleanor considers this, her fingers drumming against her chair arm with mathematical precision. And when your relationship with Miss Peterson inevitably fails? When cultural differences and media pressure and the realities of international business create problems you haven't anticipated? Will you blame me for not protecting you from choices you insisted on making? If our relationship fails, it will fail on its own terms, not because you sabotaged it. And if it succeeds, you'll have a daughter-in-law who understands the cost of loving someone in this family. Janelle feels the weight of that acceptance, the acknowledgement that loving Min-jun means accepting Eleanor as part of their lives, with all the complexity and danger that entails. And the company? Your responsibilities as heir? I'll fulfill every obligation, meet every expectation, and work as hard as you've ever demanded. But I'll do it with Janelle beside me, as my partner in both love and business. Eleanor stares at her son for a long moment, and Janelle sees the calculation giving way to something more complex. Exhaustion, perhaps, or the recognition that some battles can't be won without losing everything worth fighting for. So Young will be returned to you within the hour, she says finally. Unharmed, with her medical records intact, and with a formal apology for the misunderstanding about her mental state. And Janelle? Eleanor turns to look at the woman who has unknowingly reshaped her family's destiny. Miss Peterson, I will not lie and say I approve of this relationship. I will not pretend to believe it will be easy or without consequences. But I will not actively work to destroy it, and I will expect the same courtesy in return. It's not warmth, but it's not warfare either. It's the beginning of a truce that may, eventually, lead to something resembling peace. As dawn breaks over Manhattan, all of them understand that the real work, building a love that can survive family expectations, cultural differences, and the weight of shared secrets, is just beginning. 3 weeks later, Janelle stands in the observation deck of the Empire State Building, watching Min-jun present a dozen red roses to Sarah, who has finally been released from the hospital. Her friend is still pale, still moving carefully due to her healing ribs, but her eyes are bright with the satisfaction of a journalist who has uncovered a story worth telling. I've been thinking about the book, Sarah says, accepting the flowers with a grin. Not the exposé. That's not our story to tell. But the love story. The way two people from different worlds find each other and decide that the risk is worth the reward. Fiction? Janelle asks. Better than fiction. Truth with the names changed to protect the guilty. Sarah winks at Min-jun. Though I'll need creative control over how I'm portrayed. I refuse to be the comic relief best friend who exists solely to give relationship advice. Min-jun laughs, and Janelle is struck by how much lighter he seems. The weight of family secrets and impossible choices has lifted, replaced by something she's never seen in him before. Simple happiness. So Young has returned to Seoul with Eleanor's blessing and financial support, but on her own terms. She's enrolled in art therapy courses and is slowly rebuilding the creative life that was interrupted by tragedy. The recording remains sealed, held in trust by Taehyun's law firm as insurance against future interference, but So Young has publicly forgiven Eleanor for her past actions. Forgiveness isn't for her, she told Janelle during their final conversation. It's for me. I spent 7 years carrying Eleanor Kang's guilt, as well as my own grief. I'm tired of carrying things that don't belong to me. Eleanor herself remains a formidable presence, but the nature of her relationship with Min-jun has shifted fundamentally. She no longer assumes automatic control over his personal decisions, and he no longer seeks her approval for choices that affect his own happiness. They've learned to love each other with boundaries, which may be the healthiest development their family has experienced in decades. She sent you something, Min-jun tells Janelle, producing an elegant envelope from his jacket pocket. Inside is a formal invitation to a private dinner party at Eleanor's penthouse, written in Eleanor's precise handwriting. Miss Peterson, I would be honored by your presence at a gathering of the Kang Industries International Board members next Friday evening. I believe it's time for them to meet the woman who has captured my son's heart. It's not a warm welcome, but it's acknowledgement. Eleanor is choosing to present Janelle to the business community as Min-jun's official partner, offering her protection through public recognition rather than private acceptance. Are you ready for that? Min-jun asks, watching her read the invitation. Janelle thinks about the past month, the media scrutiny, the family drama, the near miss with tragedy that reminded her how precious and fragile happiness can be. She thinks about David's betrayal and her hard-won independence, about the security she's built through her own success and the privacy she's always guarded carefully. All of it feels less important than the man standing beside her, looking at her with a combination of hope and nervousness that makes her heart race. I'm ready, she says, reaching for his hand. But I have one condition. Anything. Next time your mother decides to orchestrate someone's disappearance, she calls me first. I'm part of this family now, which means I'm part of the decision-making process, even for the morally questionable decisions. Min-jun's eyes widen slightly, then crinkle with amusement. You want to be consulted on our family's corporate espionage activities? I want to be consulted on everything that affects the people I care about. Your mother is brilliant, but she's also ruthless. If I'm going to be Eleanor Kang's daughter-in-law, I need to understand how her mind works, and she needs to understand that I won't be a passive participant in family politics. It's a bold declaration, one that acknowledges both Eleanor's power and Janelle's refusal to be intimidated by it. She'll either respect that or see it as a challenge, Min-jun observes. Good. I'm not afraid of being challenged by Eleanor Kang. What I'm afraid of is being ignored by her. As they stand together overlooking Manhattan, both of them understand that they're not just building a romantic relationship. They're forging a partnership strong enough to survive family expectations, cultural differences, and the weight of shared secrets. Eleanor's penthouse has been transformed into a stage for diplomatic theater. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over carefully arranged conversation areas, while servers in black uniforms move between guests carrying champagne and Korean delicacies on silver trays. The gathering includes 15 of Kang Industries' most influential board members, their spouses, and several international business partners, whose opinions can make or break corporate reputations. Janelle enters wearing a midnight blue silk dress that Sarah helped her select, elegant enough to command respect, sophisticated enough to signal that she belongs in these circles, but distinctly American in its clean lines and understated jewelry. She's not trying to become Korean. She's introducing herself as someone worth knowing on her own terms. Eleanor greets her at the door with perfect hostess composure, but Janelle notices the slight tension around her eyes, the way her smile doesn't quite reach them. This dinner is as much a test for Eleanor as it is for Janelle, a public demonstration that the Kang matriarch can manage even the most unexpected developments in her family's story. "Miss Peterson," Eleanor says in English, though several guests within earshot speak Korean. "Thank you for joining us. I'd like you to meet Chairman Park from our Seoul headquarters." The next hour becomes a carefully orchestrated dance of introductions, small talk, and subtle evaluations. Janelle finds herself discussing American publishing trends with the wife of a Japanese textile executive, explaining the difference between literary fiction and commercial success to a German automotive partner, and listening attentively as a Korean grandmother describes her own experiences navigating cross-cultural marriage 50 years earlier. "The key," the elderly woman says in accented but precise English, "is not to lose yourself trying to become someone else. My husband's family wanted me to disappear into their traditions, but I brought my own gifts to their table instead." Minjun watches these interactions from across the room, noting how Janelle navigates the complex social dynamics without losing her authentic warmth. She's not performing or pretending. She's simply being herself in circumstances that would intimidate most people. "Your girlfriend is impressive," Taehyun observes, joining him near the windows. "She's managed to charm Chairman Park, and he usually considers American business culture to be hopelessly informal." "She's not trying to charm anyone," Minjun replies. "That's what makes her so effective. She's genuinely interested in understanding these people, not just impressing them." The evening's crucial moment comes during dinner, when Eleanor rises to address her guests in Korean, then switches to English to ensure Janelle understands every word. "Tonight I want to introduce you to someone who has become very important to our family," she begins, her voice carrying the authority of 3 decades in international business. Miss Janelle Peterson is not just a successful author, though her novels have been translated into 12 languages and sold millions of copies worldwide. She's also someone who has shown my son what it means to choose courage over convenience, love over obligation. The words are carefully chosen. Eleanor is framing Janelle's presence not as disruption, but as inspiration for Minjun to become a better version of himself. In Korean culture, we have a concept called jong, a deep emotional bond that transcends simple affection or attraction. It's the kind of connection that makes families from strangers, that turns business partnerships into lifelong friendships. What I see between Minjun and Janelle is jong in its purest form. Several guests nod approvingly. Eleanor is using cultural context to legitimize a relationship that might otherwise seem foreign or unsuitable to traditional sensibilities. Some of you may wonder about the challenges of international romance, about cultural differences and family expectations. I won't pretend these concerns are insignificant, but I've learned something important in recent weeks. Love that is strong enough to bridge different worlds is also strong enough to strengthen both of them. She raises her glass, and the assembled guests follow suit. To Minjun and Janelle, may their partnership bring joy to their hearts and wisdom to their choices. The toast is met with warm applause and genuine smiles. Eleanor has successfully reframed what could have been seen as Minjun's rebellious choice as evidence of his good judgment and emotional maturity. Later, as the last guests are leaving, Eleanor approaches Janelle with something resembling vulnerability in her expression. "Thank you," she says quietly, "for making this evening less difficult than it could have been. Thank you for giving me the chance to show them who I really am," Janelle replies. "Though I have to ask, why did you decide to support us publicly when you've been fighting us privately?" Eleanor considers the question seriously. "Because I realized that my choice wasn't between protecting Min-jun and losing him. It was between controlling his happiness and participating in it." "And you chose participation?" "I chose to trust that the son I raised is capable of making decisions that honor both his heart and his responsibilities. And I chose to believe that the woman who inspired such devotion in him might actually deserve it. It's not a declaration of motherly love, but it's acceptance. The acknowledgement that Janelle has earned her place in the family through character rather than convenience." As Min-jun joins them, wrapping his arms around both women, Janelle realizes that some victories are worth every battle that preceded them. 6 months later, Janelle sits in her Tribeca apartment, which has been transformed into something resembling mission control for her latest literary project. 3 computer monitors display different documents: the first draft of her new novel, research notes about Korean-American business culture, and a video call with her publisher in London who is enthusiastically discussing international distribution rights. The European market is particularly interested in cross-cultural romance narratives right now, her editor explains through the laptop screen. Especially stories that deal with real-world challenges rather than fantasy scenarios. Your protagonist's navigation of family expectations while maintaining her professional identity is exactly what readers are looking for. Sarah waves from the kitchen, where she's preparing lunch for 4 people. Herself, Janelle, Tae-hyun, and Min-jun, who has become a regular fixture in their weekly planning sessions. The friendship that has developed between Sarah and Tae-hyun surprises no one except themselves. 2 people who dedicate their lives to protecting others inevitably find common ground. "How's the Seoul research trip planning?" Sarah calls out. "Comprehensive," Janelle replies, gesturing to a stack of travel guides and cultural orientation materials. "Min-jun wants me to meet his father's side of the family, and Eleanor insists I understand the historical context of the business before I form opinions about modern operations." The invitation to visit Korea represents a significant milestone in her acceptance into the Kang family structure. Eleanor's father-in-law, the company's founding patriarch, has specifically requested to meet the American daughter, who has earned his grandson's devotion and daughter-in-law's grudging respect. "Are you nervous?" Tae-hyun asks, entering the apartment with legal documents under one arm and coffee for everyone in the other. "Terrified," Janelle admits cheerfully. "Meeting Korean business royalty while trying not to embarrass myself or Min-jun feels like walking a tightrope in stilettos." "Grandfather Kang will love you," Min-jun assures her, arriving precisely on time as he has every week for 6 months. "He's already impressed that you learned basic Korean conversation skills and that you understand the difference between formal and informal business protocols." The effort Janelle has invested in understanding Min-jun's cultural background goes far beyond tourist-level curiosity. She's been taking language lessons, reading Korean literature and translation, and studying the historical context of family-owned conglomerates in Asian business culture. Not to transform herself, but to better understand the world she's choosing to enter. "Speaking of understanding protocols," Sarah interrupts, "we need to discuss the interview requests. 3 major Korean media outlets want exclusive access to your love story, and the American press is equally interested in the billionaire romance angle." "Absolutely not," Min-jun says immediately. "Agreed," Janelle adds. "Our relationship isn't a marketing opportunity. But your book might benefit from some carefully managed publicity, Taehyun points out. Especially if you're planning to explore themes of cultural integration and international family dynamics. Readers want to know that the emotional truth comes from personal experience, privacy, while acknowledging that their story has become public interest, protecting their relationship while using their platform to explore important social themes. One interview, Janelle decides. Joint interview. Questions approved in advance. Focus on cultural bridge building rather than personal details. With who? So Young, Minjun suggests quietly. If she's willing. Her perspective on love, loss, and finding healing might provide the context people need to understand why these stories matter. The suggestion is brilliant in its humanity. So Young has become not just a witness to their family's history, but a voice for the importance of choosing love over fear, forgiveness over revenge, healing over perpetual grief. Her story gives weight and meaning to their lighter romance. I'll reach out to her, Sarah offers. The three of you together, the survivor, the heir, and the bridge builder. That's a narrative that transcends typical celebrity coverage. Phi. As they finalize plans for Korea, book promotion, and the careful management of their increasingly public relationship, Janelle is struck by how naturally they've all fallen into this collaborative partnership. Sarah and Taehyun have become not just friends, but professional allies. Eleanor has evolved from antagonist to advisor, offering insights about international business that inform Janelle's writing and Minjun's career decisions. Even their conflict with David, her ex-fiancé, has been resolved through lawyers and mature conversation rather than drama and recrimination. The man who once made her feel insufficient has been replaced by one who makes her feel expansive, capable of growth, adventure, and love that enhances rather than diminishes her independence. Are you happy? Minjun asks later that evening, as they walk through Central Park in the golden light of early autumn. Ridiculously happy, she admits. So happy it feels slightly dangerous, like I should be preparing for the other shoe to drop. What if there is no other shoe? What if this is just what love looks like when both people are ready for it? The question hangs in the crisp air between them, full of possibility and promise. Because maybe that's the real lesson of their story. Not that love conquers all obstacles, but that mature love finds ways to work with obstacles, to transform challenges into opportunities for deeper understanding and stronger partnership. Then I guess we find out together, she says, reaching for his hand. And as they walk through the park, where they first began to understand the depth of their connection, both of them know that the best parts of their story are still waiting to be written. The rooftop terrace of the Seoul Kang Industries headquarters offers a panoramic view of the city, where Minjun's great-grandfather first dreamed of building something lasting. Janelle stands beside the glass railing, watching the sunset over Gangnam District, while servers prepare for the company's annual board celebration, a tradition that has continued for 50 years, but this year includes guests who would have been unimaginable to previous generations. So Young arrives first, her artwork now displayed in 3 Seoul galleries, and her therapy practice serving other women who have experienced traumatic loss. She carries herself with quiet confidence, no longer the haunted woman who had been hiding in Queens, but someone who has transformed her pain into purpose and her silence into healing wisdom. How does it feel to be back here? Janelle asks, gesturing toward the city spread below them. Like coming home to a place I never thought I'd be welcome again, So Young replies. But also like discovering that home was inside me all along, waiting for me to be brave enough to claim it. Eleanor joins them, wearing traditional Korean dress for the formal ceremony, but moving with the easy grace of someone who has learned to balance respect for tradition with openness to change. Her relationship with Janelle has evolved into something resembling friendship, mutual respect, built on shared commitment to Min-jun's happiness and the family's well-being. The documentary crew will arrive in an hour, Eleanor informs them. Are you prepared for the questions about cultural integration and international business relationships? As prepared as anyone can be to have their love story analyzed for educational television? Janelle laughs. The documentary, a collaboration between Korean Public Broadcasting and American PBS, will explore their relationship as a case study in successful cross-cultural romance, focusing on the challenges they've navigated and the strategies they've developed for honoring both American individualism and Korean family loyalty. Min-jun appears with Tae-hyun and Sarah, the latter carrying an advance copy of Janelle's latest novel, the book that has become an international bestseller by weaving their real experiences into a fictional narrative that explores love, loss, forgiveness, and the courage required to build bridges between different worlds. The Seoul Times review is incredible, Sarah announces. They're calling it a masterpiece of emotional intelligence that transcends cultural boundaries to reveal universal truths about the human capacity for growth and connection. And the New York Times? A love story that doubles as a guide for navigating family expectations, cultural differences, and the delicate balance between honoring tradition and embracing change. Grandfather Kang approaches them slowly, his advanced age evident in his careful steps, but his mind still sharp enough to run board meetings and offer strategic advice that shapes company policy. At 91, he has witnessed Korea's transformation from war-torn nation to global economic power, and he views Janelle's integration into their family as part of that continuing evolution. Miss Peterson, he says in careful English, I have been reading your book. You write about our family with great understanding and respect. Thank you, grandfather. That means everything to me. You have given our Min-jun something I was beginning to fear he would never find. Joy that comes from being known completely and loved anyway. This is a rare gift in any culture. The formal ceremony begins as the sun completes its descent, with Eleanor offering remarks in Korean that are simultaneously translated for the international guests. She speaks about the evolution of family businesses, the importance of maintaining cultural identity while embracing global perspectives, and the unexpected ways that love can strengthen rather than threaten family legacies. But the most meaningful moment comes when Min-jun takes the microphone, speaking first in Korean to honor his heritage, then in English to include Janelle completely. 1 year ago, I thought I understood what success looked like, meeting expectations, fulfilling obligations, maintaining traditions. But I learned that true success means having the courage to write your own definition of happiness, even when it challenges everything you thought you knew about yourself. He finds Janelle in the crowd, and his smile carries the same recognition she saw across that restaurant table 13 months ago. The certainty that he has found home in another person. Love doesn't diminish responsibility, it expands it. It doesn't weaken family bonds, it creates new ones. And it doesn't require choosing between personal happiness and cultural loyalty, it finds ways to honor both. As applause fills the evening air and Seoul's lights begin to twinkle below them, Janelle understands that their story has become larger than their individual romance. They've become a model for other couples navigating similar challenges, proof that love strong enough to survive family opposition, cultural differences, and public scrutiny is also strong enough to transform everyone it touches. Later, as the celebration continues around them, Min-jun takes Janelle's hand and leads her to a quiet corner of the terrace. I have something for you, he says, producing a small velvet box that makes her heart stop. Min-jun, before you panic, he interrupts gently. This isn't a proposal. It's a promise. Inside the box is a ring unlike anything she's ever seen, a vintage gold band set with a single perfect pearl, elegant and timeless but distinctly unique. It belonged to my great-grandmother, the woman who started Kang Industries alongside her husband when they had nothing but hope and determination. She wore it through every challenge, every triumph, every moment when she had to choose between safety and the possibility of something extraordinary. He takes the ring from the box and slides it onto her right hand. Not an engagement ring, but something more personal and meaningful. Someday, when we're both ready, I'll ask you to marry me properly. But tonight, I want you to know that you already have my promise to choose you every day, to fight for us when things get difficult, and to build something together that honors both of our dreams. Janelle looks down at the ring, feeling the weight of its history and the promise it represents. This isn't just jewelry. It's a symbol of her integration into a family legacy, her acceptance as someone worthy of carrying forward traditions while also transforming them. I love you, Kang Min-jun, she says quietly. I love you, Janelle Peterson, he replies. And I love who we are together. As they stand together on the rooftop where his family's dreams first took shape, surrounded by the people who have witnessed their journey from strangers to partners to something approaching destiny, both of them understand that the best love stories don't end with declarations or ceremonies. They begin there, with two people choosing each other again and again, building something beautiful enough to last and strong enough to weather whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. Sometimes home isn't a place at all. Sometimes it's simply the person whose hand you want to hold while you figure out how to build a life worth living, one choice at a time.